Hey everyone, and welcome back to Practically Zero Waste, a podcast about making zero waste living as practical as possible. Today I had the pleasure of chatting with Jess Morales, a woman in Montreal, Canada, who is making a difference one baby step at a time. I asked Jess to be on the show to, number one, give you somebody different to listen to, and number two, give you her down-to-earth perspective on how to reduce your waste as a family of four, plus Winston the cat. I hope you get as much inspiration from this conversation as I do. So, what started you on your zero waste journey?
So really it was because we did something called elimination communication with my babies. So learning to recognize your baby's cues on when they need to use the toilet. So instead of letting them go in their diaper, you would hold them over a different receptacle, like a potty or whatever. So something like that. So we would learn how to use our child's cues and then hold them over the potty. And so they basically learn about pottying since they're born. So anyways, we did that because we did cloth diapers and we didn't really like cleaning poop diapers. And anyway, so there was a discussion on this elimination communication group that mentioned family cloth. And I was like, what in the world is that? And they were saying like, oh, because a lot of us cloth diaper, like, does anyone do family cloth too? So using cloth as toilet paper instead of paper toilet paper.
Yes.
So anyways, that piqued my interest. I was like, what are they talking about? That sounds crazy, as I always, my first response to everything. Yeah. And that kind of led to the discussion of a group of people who were doing everything that they could to basically reduce their waste and do like reusable everythings. And they mentioned the group Journey to Zero Waste. So of course I went along and found that group, and it was like mind blown. Oh my goodness. Wow. There's so much more that we could be doing for the environment and for the world. And that's really what jump-started the whole thing. So as soon as I found that group, I was like, oh my goodness, we should be doing this too, you know? We've always been trying to reduce our waste, but we had no idea the level that it could be taken to.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that was it for us, I guess. Then that that was the catalyst that kind of sparked the journey. Mm-hmm.
And why did you even think about doing cloth diapers instead of disposables?
So it was always the plan. I don't know. I didn't like how much waste the disposable diapers were going to cause. And also I didn't like all the chemicals and things that were found in disposable diapers. So for basically the health of my baby, and I didn't like the idea of having like smelly diapers in my house for an entire week. That was why we decided to do the cloth diapers. And it was probably one of the first zero waste things that we did without ever even knowing about zero waste. Yeah. Yeah, and right away when we brought the baby home, our first baby home from the hospital, she was in disposables at the beginning because she was too little for her cloth diapers, and we were just amazed by the quantity of waste we were producing, like the bags and bags of diapers those first 3 weeks. Yeah. And so that really, we were like, yeah, we're going to go with the cloth diapers. Amazing. And it was much easier for us than using disposables.
Oh, that's good.
Not something most people say, but my baby was born in the dead of January winter, and the thought of going out and buying diapers with my little newborn baby was just a little overwhelming for me at the beginning. Absolutely. And much easier to just toss them in my washing machine and always have fresh diapers available.
Oh, I love it. That's great. When they're at maybe daycare or with a different babysitter, do they still have cloth diapers? Do they accommodate you like that or no?
At our current daycare, they didn't. And I did ask about it, and they really weren't set up. And I hope that in the future they will go towards that way. Mm-hmm. But now our son goes to a new daycare, and they do accept cloth diapers. So I think it just depends. And for our babysitters, I mean, I have two young girls who occasionally babysit for my kids, and I just presented the cloth diapers as normal, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I did try and make it as easy as possible for them. So have certain diapers that are kind of mimic traditional disposable diapers, like the pocket diapers, so that would be a little bit easier for them and have everything ready. And honestly, I just told them, just change diaper and leave it in the wet bag outside, and I will deal with it when I get home. Yeah. So good. When you do it like that, I haven't had any resistance or anything to other people caring for my kids in cloth.
That's awesome.
I think when people see that it's actually not a big deal and it's not really any different from changing another diaper, except that you put it in a diaper pail instead of the garbage can, I think people are a little bit more receptive to that. We're really lucky in my city where we live. they actually give you, there's a cloth diaper incentive, so they give you like $100 towards your cloth diapering.
What? Montreal rocks.
Yeah, well, it depends on your borough. It's not all of Montreal that has it, but in Verdun, where I live, they have it. So I mean, yeah, it's a great incentive for people because the startup cost is kind of hard to swallow at first, but when you look at the cost of disposables over the time, and where it really pays off is you can use them again for your second or third whatever baby, you know. So we used the same diapers that we used with our first daughter, so it really was a money saver in the end.
Absolutely. What does a typical day look like for you, and how do you prepare for a day out with the kids? I guess that's two different questions, but...
So, typical day, I mean, I think that my typical day looks like any other typical day for mom, you know. We start off with breakfast and a cup of coffee, but in there are probably peppered little bits of zero waste tendencies. So, I mean, if I don't have a bread made that day while our toast is toasting, I'll whip up a dough, you know, and leave it to rise. And I think if you delve a little bit deeper into our life, you'll see some things that are a little different. You know, you open up the cupboards and all of our pantry, instead of boxes and bags and everything like that, it's all clear glass jars filled with dry staples. And if you go under the cupboard, you're going to see some things brewing. We always got something brewing, sourdough starter, kombucha. This week's project is sauerkraut. So my husband jokes that if anyone did an investigation, they might think I'm a witch because I have all these little glass jars of my potions and brews. But I mean, our typical day is not really any much different. I might pack a little bit more or bring some different things out. I mean, when you're a mom, you always have to be prepared for everything anyways, right? So you always have the extra clothes and the backpack filled with stuff. So maybe in my backpack, I usually have a mason jar, maybe a stainless steel container filled with snacks for the kids, our water bottles. I always have some washcloths it's actually a reusable snack bag, but it's lined in plastic, so I don't use it for snacks. But it's perfect for washcloths that I can wet and wipe down the kids instead of having a packet of wet wipes. I have that. So basically, that's it, you know, like it looks like any other day. It hasn't really changed our daily life that much, except for a few other little things that we add in. Yeah, it just looks like typical mom day, you know?
Typical mom day. How do you help educate your kids about not creating much waste?
I already had kids at the start of our journey waste. When I started, Max, my little guy, was 7 months. Skyla was 2.5. So they were both really young. And I think when you start with them really young like that, they're very open-minded. They're very adaptable. You know, one of the first changes that we did was do away with paper towels, and we replaced it all with cloth napkins. And you know, me and my husband, we were a little bit hesitant to use cloth napkins because there's something that feels a little wrong to wipe your face on this beautiful, crisp white napkin. But you know, the 2-year-old was like, "Oh, hello, napkin," wipes all the tomato sauce on it. No worries, you know. So they're really open-minded. They adapt to changes pretty easy. It wasn't really that hard for us. I think that young children also have a really deep connection to nature and to animals. They're very caring, you know, they care a lot about that stuff. And so it's easy to kind of enforce that why this is so important for them, you know. And when you explain the direct connections, you know, where does our garbage, they're so interested in everything. They ask a million questions, you know. So when you put out the garbage and they're fascinated by the garbage truck, it's like, where does it go? Where do they bring it? What happens to it when it's there? They ask all these questions, and going deeper and deeper into the answers, you know, they really understand. Like my little daughter Skyla, she really doesn't want to put anything in the garbage because she knows that, you know, all it takes is a gust of wind to blow it out, and then that garbage can be washed into the sewers, and then it's, you know, the dolphins and the turtles that could be eating it by accident. So I mean, she's turned into quite the little eco-warrior, and Max is 2 now, and he's not far behind. He'll pick up things and be like, "Ooh, plastic, mommy." You know, like he knows what belongs in nature and doesn't belong in nature. It's kind of easier to get through to the little ones than it is to older ones or adults, aka like your husband or something, you know.
I was going to ask, so was your husband on board as well? Like, or has it just like a slow transition for everybody?
Well, I'm very lucky in the sense that my husband's main priority is, maybe not main priority, but one of his priorities is to keep his wife happy. So, I mean, he goes along with it because he knows that it's important to me, which is why he's on this journey. For him, it's not as important. You know, he doesn't have a deep sense of caring for these issues, if you will.
Yeah.
But then he also sees the beauty in other things. So, like, by not buying a lot of things that we used to buy, paper towels, baggies, cling wrap,
diapers,
cleaning products, diapers, you know, so he sees the monetary benefits of that. So he really likes that aspect. He's also a little bit of a minimalist, whereas I was totally not, you know, on that. So when he saw me really looking at things like, do we really need this? And stopping my shopping habit and, you know, things like that, he really liked those aspects as well.
Absolutely,
and then I guess eventually along our journey, well, one, everything just became new habits, right? So it's just like regular that we'll bring containers or produce bags to the grocery store. Like it just became the norm. So it wasn't like such a huge change to swallow. And then he also saw, like, I remember one turning point for him was when we brought the kids to the zoo and, you know, we packed our lunches and everything like that. We sat down at the picnic tables and our table looks just so clean and beautiful. We had our little bento boxes with each of our snacks in it and all our things. And when it was done, everything was packed back up. We had no waste left behind. And we looked around at the surrounding picnic tables that were filled with baggies and chip bags and little individual bags of fishies and, you know, all these things. And the amount of garbage that was on every single table was just really eye-opening to my husband. He was like, wow, you know, I really do prefer what we have going on at our picnic table than what the other ones were. You know, I think he finally was able to see the impact that it made, you know?
Yeah.
So he's kind of on board.
Yeah.
But he's supportive, and I think that's the most important thing.
Exactly. It's so helpful having somebody in the house with you that is not undoing all of the things that you just did. And so, yeah, I think that we both have that going on, and that's very helpful. So for anybody who's like listening, it's a lot easier if you can find the ways that help the person that you're with get on board, because otherwise, like, even if it's roommates or even if it's like a sibling that you live with or parents, sharing the reasons behind the things that you're doing and the changes that you're making is going to help people get on board rather than just being like, wow, that looks like extra work, not doing it. So.
And I think making it easy. So for the resistant person, I think you really need to try and make the zero waste option the easy option. So my roll of paper towels was what we reached for all the time. You know, it was right there, right above the sink. We reached for it. And when we made the switch, I hid the paper towels in the closet. So then it was like a big effort to have to go and get the paper towels. But on the counter, there was all like neatly folded rags. Yeah. And then all of a sudden that became the easier option. So that's the option that was used. The garbage can was out. It used to be out. So it was much easier to reach the garbage can than the compost bin. So a lot of things that should have been ending up in the compost bin ended in the garbage can. So then we switched out the garbage can to one where you actually have to manually open with your hands instead of just stepping on a step. And we changed our compost bin to an open one. So now it was easier to throw the food waste in the compost bin than in the trash can. Yeah. And then humans, I think we're like a little bit lazy, you know?
Oh, 100%.
And so we always gravitate towards the easier option. So if you make your zero waste option the easier option, it's a lot more accepted by everyone in the family, I think.
Totally. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that making the effort to make zero waste as practical as possible, which is kind of what this podcast is aiming to do, is trying to look at different ways to make it the most practical option is so important, because otherwise you're going to have so much more work to convince people. With grocery shopping, I think that that's something that is a pretty big like stumbling block for a lot of people, because it depends on where you shop, right? To be able to have access to all kinds of things. In Brampton, we don't have farmers market all year round. We only have it during the summertime. And so even if you wanted to shop package free at the farmer's market and then go to Bulk Barn and get your dry goods. You can only do that from June to October. Do you have any practical tips for people who are trying to do zero waste grocery shopping at a regular store? Maybe?
I think on my baby step page, the focus is making it accessible to everyone, so everybody has different budgets, everybody has different access. A lot of my shopping I do at just the regular big chain grocery stores, because that's what my budget allows for. Instead of focusing on what you can't have, instead change your perception of what you can have. It makes it a lot easier. So I'm not one to go to the grocery store with really any sort of list. I'll take a peek in my fridge. I'll see what we still have, so I know what I don't need to buy. And then I go to the grocery store and then I see what I can buy. So the things that I find the most easily package free, butternut squash or a whole watermelon, apples, bananas, like all these things, they don't come in packaging generally. So that is what I tend to buy, and I feel like if I had a set list, like, I want to make whatever cauliflower thing, and then I go to the grocery store and they only have cauliflowers wrapped in plastic, then that sets me up for failure, because then I'm instead of focusing on what I can do, I'm hitting roadblocks. And once you start hitting roadblocks, you feel discouraged. Like, what am I supposed to do now? That was my plan for dinner. So instead I go to the grocery store, I go with an open mind and I see, hey, what can I find? Oh, they have broccoli. Okay, we're going to do something with broccoli tonight. Oh, they have asparagus. We'll do something with that the next night. And I just see what I can buy. And you know what? Actually, we can buy a lot of things. And even just at the regular grocery stores, there are a lot of options. I don't know what it is. The universe has really blessed me. But as soon as we started on this journey, a bunch of zero waste shops, Bulk Barn opened up, all within walking distance of me. I don't know how this happened, but I was really blessed. But at the beginning, I didn't have all those things, so but I found it in other places. I went to the Walmart to get groceries there, and hey, they have bulk bins there. They have plastic baggies, and they're not set up to tear anything, but I found a way around it, and I just filled my cloth bags. I had some little cloth bags that I had made that were very lightweight, and that wouldn't add much weight to my things, so it didn't really matter if they got teared, and I filled up on lentils there. I think once you start opening your eyes to that kind of thing, it makes your journey a lot easier. And you realize, like, wow, there actually is a lot of options everywhere I go. I'm sure some people, have different limitations, but they also have different benefits. So, like, if you're living in a more rural area, that you don't have access to a lot of different stores or even big chain things. But sometimes you have a lot more land. So you can do your composting, in your backyard. Whereas a city dweller can't do that as easily, or you can grow your vegetables in the summer and make do with that and have package-free fresh food like all summer long, So everybody has their limits and you just kind of have to work with what you got.
Yeah, exactly. You have to see what's available to you.
That's what it comes down to. If meal planning works for you and that's how you reduce the food waste that goes on, because food waste is a significant amount of waste that goes on in most Canadian households. So if meal planning helps you do that, then go with that way. You just have to find what works for you. I started my journey in the big chain grocery stores, but since then I've kind of moved away from that. And in Montreal, we have tons of little places. And if you go to the little places, I feel like they'll be a lot more receptive. So, I don't buy a lot of meat anymore, but my husband is a big carnivore. He needs it. Yeah. So, I go to the little butcher, and he's very happy to fill my containers with whatever I want. And yes, we have the fromagerie, we have the bakeries. When you're going to these like little more specialty stores, I feel like they are a lot more receptive and it makes it a lot easier, when you don't, I think a lot of people are afraid of rejection, which I really was. I was really shy to ask for these things, like to ask for exceptions to be made for me. And I think a lot of people have that. But at the smaller stores, it's a little easier. It's a little bit more personal, I think. And I think when you kind of know that they might be receptive to it, it's easier to ask.
Yeah, you have a little bit more confidence when you're approaching somebody with
and then, you go back to the same places and they recognize you because, you're a little crazy jar lady or whatever.
Yeah, you're the weirdo with the Tupperware.
They become kind of your friends, and it actually has really helped me gain a better sense of community where I live, because my butcher knows me and the people at the bakery know me, and the person at the little fruit and vegetable store asks about my kids and how they're doing in their daycare, and it kind of makes it really has changed my shopping.
Do you find it slows you down a lot to go to several different stores? Like, that's one of the things that I've heard from people saying, that zero waste is impractical for me because it forces me to go to 7 different stores. Not 7, but like a number of different stores rather than getting it all in one place.
Yeah, I definitely think that could be a barrier to a lot of people because, our time is really valuable. When you're wasting time and fuel and everything going to a million different places, it just doesn't make any sense. For me, I'm very lucky. I live in the city, so basically I have every single store within walking distance, and I kind of incorporate it into my routine, so when I'm walking down to the daycare to get my kids, I'll bring my bottles with me and fill up we have a milk dispenser en vrac at one of the stores, so I can fill up my milk and then I'll come home. It's one store, but it was on my way. If you do have several stops, to incorporate them into your normal routine, it doesn't seem as out of the way. I used to do big shops, so I'd only go out like once a week or something like that and do a big shop, but I felt like that was leading to more food waste because I wouldn't be able to keep up with all the produce, and cook it all in time. So now I realize I do have lots of places along the way, so I'll just pick up what I need, and I do go grocery shopping a couple times a week now.
Okay.
But I just pick up what I need, and so my fridge always kind of looks empty, but there's always stuff in it.
Yes. And you've trained your eye to look at it differently instead of saying, ooh, it's kind of empty, or like, ooh, that would take an hour to prepare. We've changed that by doing meal planning, but even just having that mindset of changing, so when you look at your fridge, you can see what you need
what you have.
Yeah.
For me, I feel like it's easier to plan a meal when I don't have too much stuff. I think I get overwhelmed with when there's too much in the fridge. But if there's just like one thing, it really allows me to focus better. So, and you know what? It's really insane how many meals you can bang out without having to run to the store. Yeah. So we a lot of the time we do like full-on emptying out of everything. We go in the freezer, and we just got back from camping last week, and I should have probably gone grocery shopping, but I've been lazy, and we've managed to have a pretty decent meal every single night with just working with a few little odds and ends and just grabbing a couple of things here and there, so.
I like to call those like the end of the line, or like the desperate meals, but at the same time, like, they're still pretty good. Like, you can make so much.
You can make a pretty awesome curry with just a couple of ingredients.
Yeah. What are 2 zero waste goals for you? Maybe a short-term one and a long-term one.
The first year we started, the goal was just to reduce our household garbage output. So that's what we did the very first year, and it went super well. The next year's goal was to focus a little bit more on the recycling aspect, because we all show our garbage and, oh, look how much garbage we're making, not much, but then the recycling bin can still be pretty full. We realized that recycling is not quite the answer either. For this year's goal, it was really to reduce our amount of recycling, and then also look into some zero waste solutions for our cat, because right now our cat Winston is really not on board with the family's goals at all. So he's a little bit exempted, but we would like to start moving towards some changes for him too. And long term, well, with this, I think everybody who kind of goes on this journey reaches a point where they feel like we're doing so much in our own household, but then as soon as we step out of our household, we kind of get overwhelmed and discouraged again when we see all the rest of what everyone else is doing. And, you go in the grocery stores and you see the rows and rows of plastic, and it almost, it's hard to kind of go on sometimes, because you're like, is what I'm doing even making a difference? So I think everybody really hopes that they can do something to make a change on a bigger level. Like, it's okay to do it just on a personal level. I think it's amazing. And obviously, cumulatively, that will make impacts. Just showing more people and seeing the movement grow is always a long-term goal. So I went into the daycare a couple of weeks ago, and we did a little zero waste workshop with the 3-year-olds, and it was
awesome.
really, really fun. And the kids were really great and really interested, and it was definitely something that I could see me doing more of, and so maybe that's one of my more long-term goals, is maybe holding a little bit more educational workshop. I think the kids are the way to go,
Yes.
They're our future, so I think they're really what's going to change the world.
Yeah.
I brought in a sample of compost from our community garden.
Amazing.
And they loved looking at the dirt and like holding the dirt, and then they found bugs in the dirt, and it was I think it was really magical for them to realize, like, if you put all your vegetables, this is what it turns into,
Do you make a lot of your own products, or do you tend to not? Trying to think, like, mostly toiletries and stuff, I find are the ones that are harder to replace right now. I'm finding that, like, toothpaste is hard to replace, deodorant is hard to replace, and I don't know, I can't think of anything else.
I found other things, like, so my shampoo, I can get it refilled at the bottle, so I go back with my bottle and I refill it, and that works well for me. Toothpaste, I also can get there's toothpaste at my bulk store, so I get that. I probably could make my own, but I just, and then deodorant, I did try some, like, ones that I bought. I didn't like them in the end. I've just been making do with just plain coconut oil, which I think sounds crazy, but it actually works for me.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So, yeah, I think definitely you can get caught up in making all of your things, and it is more cost effective to make your things. If you have the time, that's a good way to go. If you don't have the time, which I think a lot of us with kids, we're already overwhelmed with kids. I don't know, well, at least I am. And there never seems to be enough hours in the day. So I just feel like I can't be making everything. There are some things that I can, and the things that I can't, I buy, or we make do without.
Yeah. I mean, what has been the most challenging part of going zero waste?
Yeah, well, there's definitely the challenges.
Yeah.
Just understanding that we live in a very convenience-driven world.
Yes.
Going zero waste is not always going to be convenient. And once you just accept that, it's a lot easier to move forward.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I was trying to do at the beginning was trying to find replacements for everything. Eventually, I realized that, I don't need to have replacement Oreo cookies. It was fun to make my own Oreo cookie, but do we need Oreo cookies? No.
Or could you just make a regular
We can make do without that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to not focus on what you can't have and trying to replace it, but just, see what you can have. One of the things you're saying, people give a lot of stuff to kids. People just want to lavish things on kids. It's how they show their love for them, I think, So trying to get family members and friends to change that kind of attitude has been a little tough. The first year, we asked for no birthday presents at my daughter's birthday. We said, your presence is enough. We just want to have a party and celebrate. She was just turning 2. But that did not go over well. Everybody still brought gifts. So I've come to realize that people need to give something. So if I can offer them a little bit more direction, like the year after, we said, Skyla really wants to take ballet classes. So if everyone could just bring a $10 contribution to her ballet classes, we would really appreciate that. And then that went over a lot better because people, they don't feel comfortable not bringing something to the birthday. So if you can give them something that is still respecting our family's values and still kind of respecting their values too. Especially when you're in a family situation, you need to take into consideration everybody's feelings.
Yeah.
And we all need to work on this together. So if it's going to cause upset when, we were at Bulk Barn, and I don't know if anyone has brought their kids bulk shopping before, but it has its own set of challenge. Keeping their little fingers out of the bins and stuff. And, my kids were going a little bit crazy. And bless her heart, the cashier came over with some lollies for them. And, it was wrapped. It had a plastic wrapper. And normally we wouldn't give things like that. But in that circumstances, we are filling our pantry with entirely packaged free things. And if it's going to keep the bins clean and going to keep everybody's sanity, including mine, then yes, I'm going to accept that lolly and thank you very much, like I think being grateful and graceful about it makes it easier to refuse, because refuse is a really hard one.
Yeah.
I find it's the most important, but it is really hard, especially when people are so well-meaning.
And you're trying to be so polite too. Like, you don't, and people don't, maybe they would assume that it's for, like, you're just trying to be polite and saying no, and they're like, no, really, I do want to give this to you, and you're just kind of like, I have an allergy, or like something stupid. Do you have any advice for people who are finding the transition challenging and impractical?
Well, my site is called Baby Steps to Zero Waste. And honestly, I mean, some people want to go cold turkey and just change all their life in one day. To me, going and making small changes one at a time is going to be the easiest way for the vast majority of people. Taking a look what's in your trash can and focusing on one thing and seeing if there's something else that you could be using so that it's not ending up in the trash. As you accumulate these small baby steps, it grows and grows and grows until eventually you're looking at your trash can and there's really not much in there anymore. And I think not being too hard on yourself when you can't do things. I think it's really easy to feel discouraged when you're trying so hard. And like you told the waitress, like 5 times no straw, and then it comes with a straw.
Yeah.
You're like, you tried.
Yeah.
Don't beat yourself up. Don't sweat the small things. All you can do is try and just do your best, And if your best at that point is, making your own baby food, but doing a disposable diaper or whatever, I mean, don't beat yourself up about it. You got to do what you got to do. But I think the most important thing is just to be mindful. And I think if you're mindful of of what you're consuming, that's the most important step. Last year, we had Montreal had its first zero waste convention in the old port. And so we had it was about 2 or 3 days long, and all the merchants were out there. I learned a lot about the different things that we had available. So it was really nice. I think it really is growing in Montreal. So there's a lot of community things going on. Even in Verdun, there's a lot of stuff going on that we can partake in. So it's kind of nice. You don't feel so lonely. I have even had people come up to me while shopping. They saw me with my whatever bags and containers. I'm like, oh, are you trying to go zero waste? And I was like, oh my gosh, you know about zero waste? It's really fun to connect like that. People, like as soon as you do something a little different, people kind of overcome the social norms and will ask you questions and stuff. So it's kind of fun like that.
Yeah, I love being in line at Bulk Barn, just in line to like weigh my jars first.
And at Bulk Barn, they're really great. They have it all laid out, in a pictogram how it works, but people need to see it done.
It is
like
awesome.
They need to see a living, breathing example doing it. So, and then it makes them more confident to do it themselves.
Yeah.
I almost always get that question asked every time I go to Bulk Barn. And they're like, oh, wow, your pantry must look so nice. I'm like, it does. But just to be able to see your food, that's one of my favorite changes, even though it's like the silliest one. But I just love opening my pantry and seeing everything,
Don't you love those little superficial aesthetic things that have changed?
It's totally silly, but it's a little like tiny silly reward, when you look at, or even, you don't, instead of having that plastic dishwashing detergent, now mine's in a little glass dispenser that I get filled up. I'm like, it makes my counter look so nice. Yeah. It does. And I mean, I think if you look at Instagram and stuff like that, it's filled with such beautiful pictures. And a lot of people complain that zero waste is not pretty, like it's not real life, and it makes the movement feel a little bit unattainable to people. Yeah. But I love it. I'm like, it also makes it look so beautiful. And people are attracted to beauty, and they like things when it looks organized and clean. And if it's going to appeal to a certain population who likes that kind of stuff, I think go for it. And on my Baby Steps page, I try and show the behind the scenes. I have the nice pictures too, but the behind the scenes, making tortillas. Yeah, you get these beautiful tortillas, but you also get like a flour all over your counters. Yeah. And, a lot of dishes. Like the behind the scenes are there too, to give it a little bit more of a real aspect. But yeah, I do love the beauty of zero waste. And I think that's what made the movement kind of gain popularity at the beginning anyways.
Making it like appealing in any other way possible is so important. So to be able to make it appealing visually is really important. Like, it's nice to have beautiful things to inspire people, but it's also important to not like think that when you're starting the movement,
they need to go buy a bamboo cutlery set, because I mean, honestly, almost everybody has cutlery in their drawer.
Yeah.
So it's just as easy to just take a little fork and knife out of that and put it in your bag. You know, it's nice to have the matching bamboo set, but it's also not super necessary. So
yeah. Well, that's kind of all.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of topics.
Yeah. It's exciting for listeners to be able to hear that there's light at the end of the tunnel. You can get a year in and see significant changes. Like, it's not something that you're going to be doing baby steps forever and see no results. You're going to see results so fast.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most surprising things with the zero waste journey, is how fast small things can make such a huge difference in your house. I know that was really surprising to my husband. As soon as we did a few tweaks to our shopping habits, all of a sudden, we never put out all that much, before, but all of a sudden we were not even really having much at all.
Yeah.
And then when my son used to do a disposable diaper at nighttime, and then we eventually cut that out, and just cutting out those 7 diapers a week, our trash became, going from small bag to like mason jar level. I was like, oh my gosh, just this one change. Yeah. Cutting out 1 diaper a day has made such a significant change in our trash output. So I think, even if people make one change, it's going to do something. And I think that's one of the things I like to get out there too, to any listeners, is that, you can do one small change and it will make a huge impact on your household waste.
It's so important to see again and again how far you have come, because even in your first week of going zero waste and you've decided to not buy this one package thing anymore, or you use a lot of Kleenex or something and you've switched to a handkerchief, just being able to see the difference is going to be so inspiring to people. Yeah. At least it was for me. Yeah.
For me too, I think.
Well, thanks for talking with me.
It's my pleasure. I'm so glad that we got to catch up. It's nice to actually put a voice to the face,
I know, yeah. Thank you. And see you on Instagram.
Yeah, see you on Instagram, and maybe we can chat some other time as well.
Yeah, very good. Well,
all right, sounds good. Enjoy your day.
Bye.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. If you missed the first episodes, you can find them for now at soundcloud.com/PZWPOD. You can find Jess on Instagram and Facebook at Baby Steps to Zero Waste. And you can find me on Instagram at Elspeth Callahan. Good luck in your zero waste journey, and remember, every little bit helps. Talk to you next time.